Hi, I am the Republicrat. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about Doge, capitalism, H-1B visas, the economy, and other middle-class woes associated with income inequality. I have 38 years of experience as a biomedical engineer in the medical device industry. I've worked with the FDA and, more importantly, huge corporate CEOs, so I have plenty of experience in order to address this topic. So let's get into the real problem with the economy and weigh that with the solutions spoken by President Trump. The real problem with the economy, as this chart ominously portrays, the top earning 1% of Americans account for 30.4% of the income wealth of the USA, whereas the first 90% of the population accounts for a mere 33% of the income. This is not a typo, my friends. This is the fact. It takes 90 times more people to account for only an 8.6% increase in the total income. The earners in the 90 to 99% range make an astounding 36.6% of the total income. In other words, the top 10% of the nation makes twice as much income as the first 90%. This is an absolute outrage and should offend everyone in the top 90% of the income earners. And before you get puffy-chested thinking you're above this, here is another key statistic. The yearly income at 90% is approximately $450,000 per year, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. So if you aren't making $450,000 a year in the United States, you are part of that low to middle income wage earning category. Also, the trend of the chart shows an obvious conclusion. Since 1989, there has been little, if any, improvement in this disparity. In those 36 years, the United States has had 3 Republican presidents and 3 Democrat presidents. There aren't any sharp changes in this chart over any 4-year span that would indicate a change from a Democrat president to a Republican president. Then what can this be accounted to? The same mentality that a corporate CEO possesses to buy border wall sections for pennies on the dollar, sell it back to the original corporation, albeit under new management, for hundreds times more at the expense and security of the working class, is the same mentality that will underpay its corporate workers. Let's get into some examples. In the mid-1990s, I worked for a company that was planning to eventually executed the termination of American workers in order to have products manufactured in Puerto Rico. At the time, I was a manufacturing engineer, and I knew the cost distribution of my product down to the pennies. I had made, for each product I was responsible, spreadsheets showing material cost, tooling cost, direct labor, indirect labor, overhead, and many other accounting cost categories associated with these products. I showed my manager, then I showed his manager, then I showed the department vice president that there was no possible way for them to save the money they were touting by saving on labor having the product made in Puerto Rico. They moved the product and terminated my United States colleagues regardless of my efforts, and in the long run, I was blackballed from job changes, promotions, and even salary increases until I left the company. I have recently been in a prayer group By the way, I love Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior with all my heart. This prayer group was in southeast Iowa, and one of the members was giving her testimony. Part of that, she was stating that as a nurse, she had not received a pay raise in 15 years. I was shocked. I interrupted her. I said, wait a second. You mean in 15 years you have gotten no pay raise, no cost of living increases? She looked at me and holding tears back, she said, nothing. What kind of CEO with any business sense, with any compassion, would ever withhold a pay raise for 15 years? How could that happen? The only answer is capitalist greed and follow the money. I am saving my worst story for last, unfortunately. A dear friend of mine was integral in helping a metal fabrication business, now worth millions of dollars of sales a year, for over 20 years. A couple of years ago, his wife was diagnosed with cancer. This is still a relatively small business, which means as far as the number of employees, which means everyone knows everyone's business. The owner of the company decided to change health insurance companies, knowing full well that this would mean that my friend's wife would lose her insurance benefits. Regardless of this, the owner changed insurance companies, and she was no longer able to receive treatments for her cancer care. How could any business owner, CEO, HR executive, or any of the other top 10%ers execute and act like this? The only answer is capital, greed, and follow the money. When capitalism is in full effect, the casualties of the working class does not matter. The same is true with Elon and Vivek pushing the increase the number of foreign work visas. They use the analogy that in order to get the best team, you have to hire the best workers. They have even equated this to a championship team going out and recruiting the top athletes and making the team better. Sorry, gentlemen, but you are wrong. The reason that the sports team's analogy doesn't work is that when sports championship teams go out and recruit, they find the best athletes and are willing to pay them top dollar. In your example, we are going out finding workers that are willing to accept pay way under what the corporations would pay an American worker. Why does Elon and Vivek want this? Because they are both billionaires driven by capitalist greed, and this will increase their yearly income of the capitalist corporations they both own. Again, follow the money. Any explanation other than that is a smoke screen intended to make you lose track of the money trail. All American workers that heard from Vivek and Elon that foreign workers are required in order for American corporations to compete should be outraged by this thinking. If corporations want top performers, they should start by hiring back the 55 to 65-year-old workers that have been forced to retire early. These are American workers with wisdom, knowledge, strong work ethic, and many other desirable traits You need to be competitive. That top 10%er executives have wedged out of the capitalist companies. Why? The only answer is capitalist greed and to follow the money. Do me a favor. If any of you listeners have been asked to retire early, are feeling pressured now by your management to retire, had a friend or family member pressured to retire early, or have lost a job only to be replaced by a foreign worker, please share your story in the comments section and forward this video to any friend or family member you know that has gone through this, and give them a chance to watch it so they can comment as well. To extend this thought even more, why is the working class expected to retire at 65 years old when we have President Biden at 82 years old, President Trump is 78 years old, and Nancy Pelosi is 84 years old? If the working class has such diminished skills and cognitive ability at 65 years old, why do we trust individuals that are much older to have skills and cognitive function to make laws for the country and hold the codes to launch nuclear missiles? Isn't the business of the United States government much more important than the business of an individual corporation? Warren Buffett is 90 years old. Rupert Murdoch is 91 years old. Surely these men should have retired at least 25 years ago and followed the same guidelines that the working class is to retire at 65. Doesn't that make sense? So why didn't they? The only answer is capitalist greed and follow the money. But in a headline, I have Wells Fargo could lay off as many as 525 employees based out of Columbia, South Carolina, at the close of the bank's corporate office there by June 30th, 2024. A little bit more research, I found out that the average worker for Wells Fargo in South Carolina is $40,305. That was from Zippia. And from salary.com, I found out that the president and CEO of Wells Fargo, Charles W. Schwab, made a whopping $24,642,526 in compensation that year. If you do the math, that CEO's salary could pay for 611 employees, well over the 525 that was laid off. And to extend that even further, had he paid out of his own salary the 525 workers, he still could have made a whopping $3,466,230. That should be ample salary for anyone. Why wasn't his salary cut? I don't understand this. And another example, and this time I went into a nonprofit organization. This nonprofit organization, I should put that in air quotes, nonprofit, Prisma Health, cut 689 job cuts. This is for a nonprofit organization. The top 3 executives make $4,047,507 a year. So they could have easily, out of their salaries, saved the jobs of 100 employees. My problem is they're laying off these the working class, and they're still getting these huge salaries and still getting bonuses. Sorry, these are real life problems, just like my dog barking is a real life problem. The issue that I have with this is that working class are working hard. Most of us are just working very, very hard, and we have to deal with these issues, and we have to deal with layoffs. And while we are being laid off, the the corporate leaders are getting tremendous bonuses, and it doesn't make any sense. Their job is to protect this company and protect the workers, just like the job of the President of the United States is to protect its constituents. But instead, they are letting people go to fend for themselves while they collect huge bonuses. And this kind of thinking is wrong. There are solutions that for these kind of problems, but they have to be addressed, and right now they're not being addressed because of the incorrect thinking of our leaders. Now, I'm going to weave this whole conversation back into the wall example and how Trump is explaining he's going to fix the economy. Why have there been wall sections that have been laying for waste for 4 years? These were wall sections that were built under the Trump administration the first time, and they were not used. Why is that? It doesn't make sense. If the security of the border was so important and deemed as existential for our livelihood of the United States, then why wasn't it done? Simple. He didn't use enough manpower. He didn't bring in enough people. Maybe he was trying to save money, thinking again of corporate mentality and corporate greed. You got to save money every chance you get. That was wrong thinking. Why didn't he quadruple their workforce? Why didn't he pay them more money? Give them incentives for finishing the wall earlier. You can't use COVID as an excuse for this, because this is an outdoor activity. And as far as I know, there were very few, if any. I know a lot of construction workers that were still working during COVID. So that you can't use that excuse. It is not viable. However, since it didn't get done and now we have the issue at hand, then use my example. Bring on many more people. Hire these people, give them huge pay increases. Don't give pay increases to the CEOs. No, this should not increase your budget to this project at all. Give it to the working class. His other example of how to fix the economy is drill, baby, drill. I'm all for this, but I predict, based on my knowledge of capitalism, that it will only lead to CEOs of the oil companies getting huge pay raises and bonuses, and the working class getting abused and getting no increase in salary or hourly pay at all. Most likely it will also mean that the land used to drill will get raped and pillaged and not restored properly. Does a strong economy to me mean a greater GDP, or is true economic growth occur when the corporate growth is shared equally among all the team members, all the workers, all the executives, all the people that clean your floors, the people that are doing secretarial duties, the people that are doing your everyday are just as important to corporate success as what the CEOs are. I promise you that is the case. Another issue is bringing back work that has been shipped overseas to China and bringing it back to the United States. Am I for that? Absolutely, it sounds great. Unfortunately, the working class will get minimally paid jobs, and the top executives will receive huge bonuses and salaries. This does not help the income disparity problem at all. I want to know, how does the Trump administration going to use this opportunity to correct the income disparity problem? If it does create new jobs, does Elon and Vivek are they planning on giving those jobs to foreign workers since they want to increase foreign work visas? I don't know. I have more examples. I'm sure you have plenty of examples. Matter of fact, if you have any examples, please write them in the comments below. But you are getting my point. Yes, I have thought of solutions to these issues, and actually I think I have some great ideas, and hopefully someone from the Trump administration will reach out and talk to me. And one other issue that I want to bring up. Remember this photo? There was a survey on X asking, if you are allowed to give a single advice to Trump, what would it be? I replied, hire me. You need a person in this picture who isn't a bazillionaire and can give you sound advice on the needs of the working class constituents. Most people in industry realize the problem of the working class are rarely presented to full impact to executive management. Usually, the impact of the problem is so padded that management feels a feather land on them. The same is true of this picture. These people are so insanely rich that they do not feel any of the economic pains of the working class. Have they ever been faced with the decision to buy food or buy medicine this month? Do they know the pains of being terminated because of company downsizing? Have they ever been denied medical care because the job they had didn't cover medical insurance and medical insurance was too expensive to buy with a minimal paycheck that they were receiving? The answer, of course, is no. Have you felt any of these pains? Tell me your story in the comment section. As a side note, I hope the photographer realizes that this picture will hurt every effort that RFK Jr. makes in the next 4 years to make America healthy again. I truly hope RFK Jr. can recover from this little publicity stunt and make a difference with the FDA and our public health. This is imperative. He needs to start first with the topic of this picture, that is big food, and then he needs to go to big pharma. Both of these industries needs controlled, and they need control immediately. Finally, I know many of you are thinking, yes, income disparity in the United States is high, but the wealth of America is greater than other countries, to which I add the chart. According to this chart, America ranks 10th as the wealthiest country in the world, so that argument does not hold true. Compound that by the next figure, and it shows the wealth inequality. This shows that United States is the 6th highest income disparity, and Sweden and the United States look like they're virtually in the same mess because they have high wealth, but the income disparity is very high, almost equal between the two countries. Hopefully, the Trump administration can talk to the leaders of Norway and Luxembourg to find out how they balance their income proportions, both being the highest, being the wealthiest countries in the world, but they're not even on the wealth inequality chart. In closing, I want to add this statement. We, the people, middle class, hardworking, non-managerial, vocationally employed of the United States, have not quietly quit. We are boisterously telling you we are tired of corporate executives treating us poorly, withholding pay increases we have worked hard to earn, understaffing our departments, then demand we worked more, withholding the training we need, and other nefarious activities that executives use just to enrich their personal profit and the profit of the board of directors. We demand greater portion of the corporate wealth that we have worked equally hard to obtain, maybe even harder than the top executives. May God continue to bless America to follow his plan for his kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen.